All right, my friends, Brian with VetteSource here, Tuesday afternoon, out in the front yard. I'm sorry, evening, actually. I think we're close to 6 o'clock already. So, enjoying some of our April nice weather. It's actually very pleasant out here today with low humidity. So today, real quick, just for fun, figured I'd do a little preventive maintenance on the cars. Now, when I jokingly refer to loose change in the front of the Formula 350 or WS6 car, what I'm actually referring to are sway bar bushings. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and do a little maintenance on the car, and I'm going to show you what the WS6 package is all about. Now, F-bodies, it should be these third gen Firebirds and Camaros, are essentially the same car, built in the same factories, same basic assembly lines, with different body panels on them, interiors and other things. The roof and the doors are the same and other things like that. But one of the things they did, Pontiac and Chevy always had different philosophies about how they were going to do things. And one of the things that Pontiac did differently was they always had their WS6 Pontiac performance handling package, which consisted of higher rate springs and higher rate shocks, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Well, these are a strut setup anyway, but the gist of the matter was it gave you a better performance handling package, which included this ridiculously oversized sway bar right here. Now, it's hard to see in this video, but this is probably the biggest, most ridiculously sized sway bar I think I've ever come across in my life. Now, the Camaros as well, and the IROCs that had the FE2 suspension, had equally large sway bars on them. And of course, I'm not going to get in the argument of which car handled better, because they're both F bodies and they both handled really cool. But when I refer to loose change in the front of these, you can see where that sway bar is connected right there. And this is something you can use applicable to all your cars that you have here. You can see here that my bushings are completely gone in this thing. So what has happened is I have no bushing metal to metal. So what that thing does is make a bunch of noise every time I'm going over bumps and stuff. And it sounds like loose change when I'm going through across bumpy roads. So I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to change these out with a new set of AC Delcos. For right now, my sway bar bushings actually still look pretty good. Hello, dog. Oh, my dog's behind me. And but you can see, looking at this, how monstrously oversized this bar is. So I figured today, just for fun, I'd show you guys, and you can see what happens when that's loose. I'm actually just making noise right now as I move that up and down. So give me a second to set up. I'm going to change this out real quick, show you how easy it is to do, even for your do-it-yourself kind of people, and we'll go from there. So I'll be right back. Okay, with our tire removed, you can actually visualize this a little bit better than me laying under the car. And here's that monstrously sized sway bar I was talking about. You can see how big that is. So that provides quite a firm ride around the corners. And then you can see here, see how this thing just is, all the bushings are gone. So this is that annoying rattling sound. And if you're hearing this in the front of any car you're driving, a rattle, it's always a good idea just to peek your head underneath there and see what you're looking at. It may be something simple, because I'm going to tell you straight up, these brackets here, these sway bar bushings, are not expensive. They're, even these that I bought for this car here are an AC Delco Professional set. I think I paid $10 for these. So there's always a way to get stuff cheap for these car parts, especially these general, what we call expendable car parts. So don't go let your mechanic tell you otherwise that they're overly expensive. So what I'm going to do real quick with this is I'm just going to simply cut this out. And for you that aren't familiar, what this does is it goes actually through the lower control arm into the sway bar. And the sole purpose of this is to provide a cushion for the sway bar as it bounces up and down. I can't move it again because it's so thick. And it moves in junction with the control arm as it's moving up and down. So that's primarily its whole purpose is a tie rod. And then of course you can see there's a bumper right there. That bumper stop will actually hit up against the upper K-frame member here if the travel gets too heavy duty. And I was wrong, actually. These do have a separate spring from the struts. So if I'm remembering correctly, I may have it backwards. It's the Pontiacs wanted to use a really big sway bar and the heavy-duty valving on the struts, shocks, and then a softer rate spring, I think. And Chevy's philosophy was a higher rate spring, a little bit of a smaller sway bar, and a stiffer shock, or a softer shock too, stronger spring. So, you know, regardless, guys get into arguments all the time about which F-body handles better. Frankly, they all handle really well in the corners. It's one of the interesting things about these. And the sway bar in the front is one of the primary things that keeps it handling so well. So, looking at it real close here, our brake calipers, our brake rotors look okay for now. So, got a little more life left in those. So let me get my sawzall set up and cut this old one out of here, and I'll be right back with you guys. Stand tight. All right, back again. So our sawzall made pretty quick work of removing our old bolt assembly, which is just, of course, a throwaway at this point now. But one of the unique problems we encounter, not problems, but situations we got to deal with now, is to get this other assembly in here, which you can see what you got is a sandwich of 2 bushings there with the sleeve, with another sandwich of bushings to go in that upper piece. Is we actually have to jack up on that sway bar to get that thing high enough up to get that stack up in there correctly. Now what I'll do now is go ahead and lower it back down again, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring it down on this assembly here and give us some more space to go ahead and put that upper bolt and housing on there. So it gives me a little bit of room there. What I may end up doing is having to jack this control arm here. So I'm gonna get this last piece on here and I'll show you guys how this stack up looks when we're done. Give me just a second. Okay, back again. As you can see, I've got my stack up installed here. Had to do a few more interesting things to get this to work right. So first, we actually had to jack the sway bar up to get that stack up even in there, to get enough room in there. And then once we got the stack up in there, then I had to resort to getting the jack underneath the control arm here to get that up in that sway bar enough to get those nuts started. So other than tightening this up, there's not much else that goes on. It's just a matter of manipulating these 2 bars, the sway bar and the control arm, and the distances between them so you can get everything to stack up in there correctly. So I'm gonna button all this back up again in a few minutes here, and I'll get right back to you, show you guys what that finished product looks like once we're done. And you can see again if you missed it before, so you're gonna have a stack up of underneath here. You've got, let's see, where's my bolt? Okay, so there's my bolt, right? There's my washer. There's my bushing against the control arm. There's another bushing against the other side of the control arm with the washer, with our sleeve right there, bolt going up through the sleeve. There's our other washer there with our other rubberized bushing on the other side of the sway bar. We've got our matching rubber bushing with the cap in the retainer in place, and then our bolt on top of that started. So essentially that's what you're looking at on the sway bar end link. So let me finish up wrapping this up and I'll show you guys what our finished product looks like. Hold on. Alright, back again with our install finished. We've got the pressure off the jack, and as the approaching Southwest jet flies over my house on the final flight path there, you can see we've got this installed, bushing, stack up, everything in there. And of course this one's a little bit off center, but basically that cap is just to keep that in place, and you see that offset or that angle right there. Again, this serves as a dampener basically. And on these F-bodies especially, these are fairly well known at not holding up forever. Again, that monstrous sway bar probably does a lot to impact the wearability of this item, but these should hold up at least for a couple more years again. So that's going to wrap it up today. I'm not going to bother going through the other side. You know, it's basically identical to this one, but this is just an easy way to identify some of the things that are going on if you're driving an F-body around. You can see real closely here if you never looked at these before. Basically just a strut and a separate spring setup, lower unequal length control arm. You've got a K-member actually right here. This whole piece unbolts from the front of the car. I'm not going to get into that too far, but that actually comes out. Of course, with a disc brake setup, that's part of the WS6. In fact, all of them by this point had disc brakes on them. I think by 91, even the backs were all disc brakes. I don't think any of them came with drums, but if I'm wrong, somebody feel free to correct me on that one. This one does actually have the dual cat option on it. You can kind of see it underneath there. Dual catalytic converters that snake off to the passenger side, and of course the typical, somebody decided to jack the car up on that jacking point, which is not a jacking point, and messed up that piece there, so I've got to fix that again. But that's going to take care of it today, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with some more goodies. We're going to start in on our yellow Formula 350 tomorrow and play around with that one, so I'm looking forward to that, putting a video together for you guys on that. So I will talk to you then. Thanks again, guys. Bye.